before I get started, do we have any Canadians in the room? If so, wave here. Anybody want to become Canadian in there? Just kidding. All right. Let me just start my timer so I stay on track. So anyway, thank you, Leslie, very much for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Before I get going, I just want to introduce my colleague, Kevin, who's McCabe, who's taking some video for me. Kevin works with me on the life science sector front. So during the next couple of days of the conference, if you don't catch me and you want to talk a little bit, you can also chat with Kevin. All right, so very briefly, I'll be covering a little bit about the Cascadia Innovation Corridor concept. I'll be talking a little bit about cross-border trade relations. I'll be providing some highlights on strengths of the Canadian life science industry and a brief overview of our services at the consulate. So on the Cascadia Innovation Corridor front, I just want to say that the Canadian federal government fully supports this initiative, as highlighted very recently, last week, by Prime Minister Trudeau, who was here for a 2-day visit to participate with Brad Smith and others from Microsoft at the CEO Summit, and where he had a one-on-one with Governor Inslee. The PM and the Governor both are very keen on strengthening trade, transportation, and innovation links along the I-5 corridor linking Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland. If interested, you can visit my LinkedIn profile where I put together a little backgrounder on what this Cascadia Innovation Corridor is all about, because it's a term that you hear bandied around and nobody's quite sure exactly, well, what is this thing? So, and you'll learn quite a bit more during the keynote presentation. In terms of the importance of trade to Canada and the link with Washington, Seattle, as you know, is the economic, trade, investment, and innovation hub of the U.S. Pacific Northwest region, and a major investor in Canada, notably by Seattle-based Fortune 500 companies like Boeing, Amazon, Microsoft, and Expedia, and the list goes on. Washington annual bilateral merchandise trade with Canada totals $20 billion, with Washington exports to Canada totaling $7 billion, and imports from Canada of $13 billion per year. This encompasses a range of goods in traditional sectors, such as forestry and mining resources, energy and agricultural products, as well as advanced manufacturing, equipment, and machinery. With some of the largest American high-tech companies headquartered in Seattle, it has become an increasingly important center of angel and venture capital investment in support of small and medium-sized enterprise startups active in cloud computing, data analytics, AR and VR, digital health. Canadian investors and increasingly numbers of Canadian tech SME startups are coming down to Seattle and reaching out to us for help as they're searching or they're in need of venture capital, which is in fairly short supply in Vancouver. So we're here in Seattle on the way down to Silicon Valley, an important place for money. Seattle-based technology firms such as Amazon and Microsoft and Tableau have invested heavily in the Canadian market, and many have set up software engineering, product development, R&D, and sales offices in Vancouver and a number of other cities, including Montreal and Toronto. They see Canada not only as a reservoir of highly qualified domestic and international talent, but as an increasingly important market in which to invest and expand globally. Moreover, Seattle investors are increasingly engaged in Canada in support of Canadian SME startups and are tapping into regional technology ecosystems across the country. Now, a little bit about Canada's life science industry. It's a very important one for our government, and we fully support it. My department that the consulate is part of is known as Global Affairs Canada. And just so you understand what that department is, if you take the US State Department, add the US Commercial Service, add US Aid for Development, and you have our department, Global Affairs Canada. So it's a kind of a mega department, which has 150-some embassies and consulates around the world. The subsectors of life sciences that our department, or our government particularly focuses on is pharmaceuticals and biotechnology, medical devices, healthcare information technologies, or health IT, natural health products, and animal health. Here in Seattle at the consulate, we tend to be most active in the area of health IT, along with some work in biotech and medical devices. According to PwC, the life science sector, including healthcare and social services, contributed $117 billion to the Canadian economy in 2014. The pharmaceutical, biotech, and medical device manufacturing industries specifically contribute almost $7 billion to Canadian GDP in 2015. These manufacturing industries are composed of approximately 1,400 companies and are a major component of the knowledge-based economy, employing some 50,000 professionals. They are critical contributors to Canadian exports, with over $16.5 billion recorded in 2015, equating to 3.2% of total Canadian exports. In terms of strengths of our industry in the life science sector, we're able to draw on world-class innovative research being conducted in Canadian universities, research institutes, and hospitals. In terms of universities, just across the border in Vancouver, the University of British Columbia is a very good example. Canada remains a popular and highly respected location for drug trials in all phases of major therapeutic areas, including oncology, central nervous system, cardiology, and medical devices. Canada's regulatory process for medical devices increasingly emphasizes harmonization and reciprocity with other regulatory agencies. As a result, a medical device approved by Health Canada will facilitate its regulatory approval in a number of developing countries. Canada has a strong intellectual protection system that is well suited to the current climate of patent protection, demand for new licensing prospects, partnerships, and alternative forms of investment. Canada has a strong capacity in health IT, medical imaging, in vitro diagnostics, generics, and vaccines. Canada is one of the most cost-effective locations for medical device and drug manufacturing within developed countries. And lastly, the majority of provinces in Canada have incubators and accelerators to support their life science startups. In Vancouver, the Surrey Health Tech Accelerator, supported by BC Innovation Council, is now officially BC's provincial accelerator for digital health and technologies in general in the healthcare sector. In terms of our services at the consulate, first of all, we cover 4 states, including Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. We promote Canadian exports into this region. We promote partnerships, science, technology, and innovation. This involves working with all the elements of the innovation ecosystem, including incubators, accelerators, angel investors, VCs, universities, research institutes, and so on both sides of the border, and looking for opportunities to partner together, like Fred Hutch and the BC Cancer Agency. Those kind of collaborations is what I and my colleague Kevin work on fomenting. And then thirdly, the foreign direct investment piece, we work with companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing, and so on to either enter into the Canadian market with a physical footprint, or we help them to expand their operations in other areas of Canada where we identify opportunities. One of the things I wanted to mention is that next month we are going to be launching a new strategy, or what's called the Global Skills Strategy. And essentially, the idea is that we're going to be making it that much easier to bring foreign talent into Canada in a more rapid, easier manner. There's going to be like a 2-week processing time for visas. And for larger companies that are going to make big investments, we're going to be providing tailored concierge-type services to support them in everything that they need in order to get their people in from the US or elsewhere in the world into Canada to get that much-needed tech talent that our companies so much need to grow and go global. So that's coming out in June, so watch out for that. Other services we provide at the consulate are for Canadians who need passports, or who end up in an accident, or God forbid they're arrested for something, and so on. One thing that's very important to note, we do not do visas at our office. Our immigration program shut down around 5 years ago, and now everything's done online. And if you happen to be in LA or New York, those are the exceptions. You can go in physically and apply for a visa or work permit. So if you're interested in discussing any of these topics that I've mentioned, please feel free to bump into me or schedule an appointment. I do have the app on here, so feel free to reach out to myself or Kevin McCabe. And Now, oh yeah, and if you're not already connected with me on LinkedIn, please look me up and do send me an invitation. I welcome all your requests. And that concludes my opening remarks. And now I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker for the day. It is a significant honor to have Brad Smith here to speak with us today. As Microsoft President and Chief Legal Officer, Brad is an extremely busy executive, and we are deeply appreciative of him carving out this time to share his vision of the Cascadia Innovation Corridor. Brad's impressive credentials start as far back as college and likely further. He attended Princeton University, where he met his wife, Kathy, also a lawyer, and graduated summa cum laude with a concentration in international relations and economics. He then earned his JD from the Columbia University School of Law and studied international law and economics at the Graduate Institute of International Studies in Geneva, Switzerland. And if he's ever out of a job, the Foreign Service of Canada could really use your background. Prior to joining Microsoft, he was an associate and then partner at the Washington, D.C.-based firm Covington & Burling, where he is still remembered as the first attorney in the long history of the firm to insist in 1986 of having a personal computer on his desk as a condition for accepting the job. Way to go. At Microsoft, Brad leads a team of more than 1,300 business, legal, and corporate affairs professionals in 55 countries. This team is responsible for the company's legal work, intellectual property portfolio, corporate philanthropy, patent licensing business, government affairs, public policy, corporate governance, and social responsibility work. Over the course of his career, he has overseen numerous negotiations leading to competition law, or related to competition law and intellectual property with governments around the world and with companies across the IT sector. Moreover, he has played a leading role in vital issues such as government surveillance, privacy, intellectual property, immigration, computer science, education policy, and now fostering a Pacific Northwest innovation hub linking Vancouver, BC to Seattle, down to Portland along the I-5 corridor. It is remarkable that a person with this many responsibility also finds time to advance several significant diversity and pro bono initiatives. This includes serving as chair of the board of directors of Kids in Need of Defense and chairing the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity. In addition, Brad chairs the board of the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship Program at the appointment of the governor. Please join me in welcoming Brad Smith.
Well, good morning. It's my pleasure to be